Hi, Phil. Thank you for joining me on the podcast. How are you doing?
I'm doing really well, thanks, Ethan.
With my guests, I like to go back to the start. What was your childhood like, and when did you first take an interest in music?
Well, we used to live on we used to grew up on a estate a modern estate in Dartford, and our family used to live around the corner with my mum's cousins, I was up, it was about up until 8 that I lived there, and they used to have parties all the time, and my mum's cousins were about 19 around that time. I was born in 1964, so this would be like late 60s. So they were suede heads, is what you call them then, which was the influenced after heavily influenced from Trojan reggae and Tamla Motown and stuff like that, from heavily influenced from the Jamaican influx of people from like that project that they did where they encouraged people to come over and said that they would, the Windrush, that's it, the Windrush lot, that was it. So when the flood of Jamaicans came over, they brought really lovely suits, tonic suits, and brilliant, way of dressing, and they changed the dance floor completely, in my opinion. The whole subculture, they brought like sort of groovy, sexy dancing to the onto the dance floor rather than the jive or whatever they were doing, the twist or whatever, And so I was brought up really on a lot of Trojan reggae and Tamla Motown music via my cousins, and I was heavily. I just got lost in music basically. I loved it. It escaped. It made me escape.
What, from like a quiet town down south
But
kind of?
no, no, not from a quiet town, just from a crazy. I was pretty feral. We were like left on our own to bring ourselves up, really, to be honest. Get out the back door, and from as early as I can remember, and play out in the garden, not in the garden, in the street, really. And but we had loads of big areas where the garages were around where we lived. So there's loads of big play areas. It was just like a mob brawl with loads of kids, really, basically, and sort of brought up myself. So yeah, it sort of made me escape from not being not. I never joined. I never could join in. I was never allowed in the boys' gang or the girls' gang. Just never really fitted in, really. So it sort of helped me with that.
What was your first introduction to house and electronic music?
Electronic music. We've got an elder brother we don't talk about much, Dr. Gary Hartnoll, the white sheep of the family. He's 4 years older than me, and basically it was his record Autobahn that was in the early 70s that really blew my mind. In fact, it was a whole electronic sort of sound that I never really heard before, and the whole fact that the whole album was a concept album, and just built about written about a motorway, which was fantastic. The whole album, so it was like that blew my mind. And so that from then on in, it was just like what made that noise. I've never thought, oh, I'll be in a band or anything like that. Paul was always more driven to be in a band, but me, I wasn't. Wasn't driven to do anything really at the moment at the time, a bit aimless, and so I was just really intrigued. I loved dancing, loved going to a lot of there's a lot of gay disco music really. Well, I got into early electro first, and there was a lot of warehouse parties, but playing electro and hip hop and stuff like that before rave. Um, and then I went to America, New York, to discover hip hop. Found out I was the wrong color. They wouldn't let me in. What are you doing here, boy? It was like, what are you doing? But that was like, oh, that was 86, 1986. But I found lots and lots of other clubs that played really brilliant music. So I went over there for about 6 months, and then just came back and I just wanted to. Well, I want to buy a synthesizer, buy a synthesizer and buy this and buy that, and and it just built up from there really. And then I had my first kid, and I had to move back down to Sevenoaks where my brother was living. My parents weren't living there; they were running a pub around the corner. So me and my brother, we sort of rejoined and started making music. Then, well, earlier than that actually, but earlier than when Louis was born. But yeah, so it all sort of built up from there. And Paul, with his musical knowledge, we just put my equipment and his musical logic together and sort of made a load of tracks, and that was the Green album basically.
What was the early rave scene like then before you started Orbital?
The rave scene, the rave scene. Well, it wasn't really. It was about the same time, really. It all started at the same time, really, about like late 80s, really, as far as I could see. Well, I mean, there was house music out. We didn't think there was much difference between what we've been listening to anyway, because we've been listening to a lot of electronic English, like Cabaret Voltaire, obviously New Order and people like that. So when people came over, said there's this new music called house. I thought it was quite good, really, because it gave it a new name. It wasn't anything particularly new, but it gave it a new name rather than disco music. Because there was a lot of bad press from the like indie press over here back then, sort of really wanting to, not really understanding it really. So sort of dismissing it as throwaway music just for the dance floor. But some of it is, to be honest, and some of it isn't. But we wanted to be a band, and we were saying a band. We don't make music for the dance floor, as you could probably tell. Like some of our tracks, we just wanted to. So we could convinced Pete Tong to like sort of invest in us as a band rather than just turning out another chime, another chime, another chime. Because those tracks, I'd love to have another chime, but it's sort of they just happen. Do you know what I mean? And yeah, so it's never been a desire. It's never been a, what am I trying to say? We didn't want to restrict ourselves in a box just to do dance music. Do you know what I mean? So we played Satan we used to clear the dance floor with Satan like in the early 90s. In the early 90s. So it was quite funny. We did get quite a bit of amusement out of that. It was quite funny. Yeah, people couldn't handle that, but they've come around. They handle it now.
What was the early days of playing live like? Did you start through a pub circuit?
Yeah, so what happened really, which was really in favour, because in the early 90s they used to do a thing called a PA, which was a I don't know, I never actually knew what it stood for, public address, I'm not too sure. Anyway, but what happened was that like in the clubs at the time, they'd have like Rosilla or somebody like that come up and do like a 20-minute little act, 20-minute little live PA thing, So, I'm not saying Rosilla did or anything like that, but a lot of people just came up there, mimed and, and pretended, a bit like Top of the Pops, really. And where we would set up a studio up on stage and live jam it and play our tracks that way, which we still do. And so it was quite a bit of a shock to people. But what happened, the consequence of that became like a pub circuit for it, like doing the indie, yeah, my brain. It became like a pub circuit, sort of equivalent of what indie bands can do. Build up pub circuit, play, then get to a venue, up and up, then festival, and all that route. So back in the early 90s, with the PA things happening in clubs, with chime happening, we got invited to clubs, i.e. Leeds, the warehouse with Sasha, so he would invite us up there to do a PA, and we'd go up there, obviously the back of the car to a type thing, set up studio and played live. But we did insist that we had longer than 20 minutes because taking all that equipment and plugging it all in and plugging it all out, it's not worth it otherwise, even for 20 minutes. So I mean, so we normally used to get like half an hour, 40 minutes. And yeah, so that helped build up our live and build up our name, really, like like a pub circuit for indie bands. But they don't do that. They don't really do that so much anymore. Well, I suppose they do actually. That's not true. They just have bands now rather than just a club with a PA. They just have they'd have Orbital or they'd have somebody else. As a thing in their evening on their on their on the fly.
Was it important to you and Paul to actually perform live then instead of miming?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, we don't mime. We'd only mimed once really on Top of the Pops, and then we got banned.
Why did you get banned?
Because we weren't into it at all. They wouldn't let us play live, and so we were really pissed off with them. And we had a big argument with the producer, and then we had to go on anyway. So we went on, and we were really like we were really naive, So we'd only just we'd only just got our first record out. Do you know what I mean? Like a couple of weeks, and then all of a sudden you find yourself on Top of the Pops pretending, which is what we felt really, really awkward. And if you look at it, if you look at the footage, you can sort of see we had no poll tax t-shirts. We're not allowed to have political anything political on, but so we did. They're so obscure, we got away with it, and we put our plugs. You can't really see it, but we put our plugs on top of the synthesizers out of protest. We thought it would be really rebellious. You can't even see it. And we just look really awkward, and it looks just like. And then the record label got this poor girl to come and dance next to us, which we don't like dancing girls, particularly at that time. We were very militant about having dancing girls. It's like what they're doing. It's like really not. It's really not woke. You know what I mean at the time. And it's so yeah. And then they banned us, but then the producer got changed, and then they started playing live. It had to be played live, and we went back on there when we had a track with a singer on. We had funny break, yeah. So we went back on there anyway, second time. So yeah, and played live. So fuck all.
So when you're working on a song, are you concentrating more on what it'll sound like live or on an album?
Uh, just what it sounds like, really, to be what it sounds like. We did have I can't remember which album it was, but we did think, oh, what would we did sit down and think, oh, what would sound look good live. But we're not very good at that, really. We're not very good at, oh, what will sound good, what will the people like, what will to predict what anything. We can't. We all we can do anyway. We have these ideas. We thought we'd do a really good pop track once, and went for it, got drunk, and it was a load of shit. We gave up on that, trying to do things. So essentially, we just have to do what we do for our own. It's a bit of a selfish thing in a sense, but you can only really do it for yourself. What we want, you know what I mean, and then hope other people like it. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, definitely. What's the like process of a song like making a song like now? Has it changed over the last 35 years?
Well, I don't think so. Couldn't really answer that really. I don't think it has. I don't know because we just do what the hell we like anyway. Do you know what I mean? So, um, never really. Obviously, got influenced by current trends and things like that along the way, which you do because you end up going, oh, that sounds good. Let's do a track like that, or let's do a track like this, or only because you really get inspired by a track or something like that. Like when Jungle first came out, it was sort of like, you got jungle splatterings in Orbital, sort of thing. So yeah, so don't really think about it too much.
How do you like decide what to name a tune? Like, have you got any funny stories behind the names or anything?
Oh, that's it. Oh, blimey. Yeah, that ends up some have working titles end up with working titles that stick. There was a particular one really. Um, there's one track called Still Cubed Idolatry, which is from the Green album. I think it was the NME or Melody Maker, an old indie newspaper. That there was a guy that came and reviewed us before we had that album out, and that was before the first album actually. So we were supporting Cabaret Voltaire, which was a dream for us. And anyway, so we got and they reviewed it, and he was going, oh, he was saying that, oh, yeah, we were really pretentious, and that oh, yeah, I bet they called like, I bet they got tracks called Visions Through Plexiglass or Still Cubed Idolatry or so, and he named all these pretentious names. So I said to Paul, like, look, right, that track there, we've got to name it Still Cubed Idolatry. They go like, fuck you. And we did it, and he loved it. Of course he did. Loved the fact that we'd done that. Yeah, that was a good naming track. We did have an idea that we're going to have. We've got Monday and Sunday. We haven't done Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, or Saturday yet. so they're yet to come. And yeah, and they sort of come as like I say, some tracks tell you what they're called. Some tracks stick with working titles. Some a bit of a loss, and some we have little jokes and name them, like as that example.
What was it like when Chime was released? Was it like everything was happening really fast?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, essentially that story I just told you about the Top of the Pops one. That was the fastest thing. Within within about 3 weeks of signing to London Records, we were on Top of the Pops, and that was our first track. So we didn't know what the hell we were doing, you know. And so yeah, things were really moving really, really fast. And because you got this thing, you know, because you get an advance for the first album, and I had 2 kids at the time, so I had enough money to survive for a year. I thought, right, okay, let's give this a year. I was due to do a degree in furniture design at London College of Furniture, and so I deferred that for a year, and then the year just carried on and carried on and carried on and to here after like nearly 40 years of doing it, you know. So I didn't need to get that, didn't need to do the degree in furniture design.
Were you bricklaying at the time?
I'm a bricklayer. Yeah, I'm a bricklayer in my skills. Yes, which I didn't really get on with, but it was like something, you know, I didn't really get on with school at all. And you know, I'm severely dyslexic. It wasn't even a word then. So people didn't understand what was going on. I didn't understand what was going on. Like I say, my parents were really very good in that sense, you know, and I was pretty feral, wild. And so it didn't at school didn't work out. So yeah, I did a bricklaying apprenticeship. It was actually really easy for me because it was, you know, it's not rocket science, but I had these 2 old guys. It was well Downton Abbey. They used to turn up with a with a jacket and a tie and bib and braces and all this sort of thing. You know, flat cap, proper old school. They were just about to retire, and they taught me how to bricklay. So I couldn't have had 2 better old geezers teaching me, you know, traditional bricklaying, which is yeah, I could build you a house if you want me to.
You mentioned
Definitely.
the Green album before. Most of that was recorded at home, wasn't it?
Yeah, yeah. So they're all sort of recording in home studios, really. Most of them now, even now. Well, we've got a studio, we've got a writing studio, which you could actually call a studio, but it could just as well be in your house. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't, yeah. So, you know, especially now, like everything's so condensed down into software instruments, you know, I mean, you can do it on your laptop, you know what I mean? Um, which yeah, which we tend to use all that stuff, you know, on the train, stuff like that, you know, for writing stuff. But then we bring it in, then we break it out and bring it in and use analog. You know, I've got some analog stuff over here. I'm just setting up a little home setup here. It's a bit of a mess at the moment. Let me show you. So it's all that. Can you see that from there?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So all that sort of. So you get it in here afterwards. It's all a bit of a mess at the moment, but it's work in progress.
With you're touring the Green and Brown albums in the UK and Europe. Are you looking forward to that tour?
Yeah, yeah, I am because it should be fun actually because we did it last year, but we missed out a lot of areas, you know, like and this is now we're doing it again because we're re-releasing. Well, the record company are re-releasing the Brown album, so yeah, and it's really good. I was very skeptical about it actually before we did it. I was a bit like, oh God, you know, re-releasing and then come back, you know. But actually, you know, after a lot of my moaning, well, it's not moaning really, to be honest. It's worry, you know, it's worry if people are going to really want to go for, you know, whether people are interested in this, whether people want to come and see it. And actually, it blew me away about the response that we got. It was amazing. It was absolutely amazing because what we do, we you know, so if people are coming along, should get there early because we come on. I think the doors are normally, generally speaking, the doors are normally about 7 o'clock. And we come on, we support ourselves. We come on at about 6:45 and play the Green album. And then we have 20-minute break. And then we come on and play the Brown album, sort of in their entirety, how they were. So you get like the 2 albums, 20-minute break to go and have whatever you want to do. And then come on and play the Brown one. And it really works really well. It did last time. It really worked really well. People loved it. So it was great. And also, it was quite fun because a lot of those tunes we never ever played anyway, because you only play a certain selection out of the, you know, so it took us like at least 6 months to get to prepare it all for live because they were all written on Atari 1040s and all this. So we had like floppy disks that are 35 years old that still worked actually, luckily. You know, to get the MIDI data off of that so that we can transfer it to our MIDI data to play live. Do you know what I mean? And samples and stuff. We had to buy an old sampler because the discs wouldn't work in the brand, in the updated one, and all sorts of stuff. But yeah, but it's that all that work's done now. So, and yeah, so I'm really looking forward to it again. It should be fun.
Do you still get the same buzz playing live now as you did in the early days?
Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah.
It must be so buzzed and on stage watching the crowd and stuff.
Oh, it's wonderful. It's one, especially when, it's obviously when you get a good response and people, oh, it's so much fun. It's all gives me goosebumps. Yeah, but it's lovely. I love that connection. I love that seeing smiley people, and just it's great. And we've got some fantastic audience. We've got some brilliant fans. We have that have stuck with us all these years. They're bringing their kids along now. Some are bringing their grandkids. It's so much. It's so much fun. It's so much fun. We end up like what they called. Can't remember. There was a big prog rock band out in America. I can't remember what they're called now. That was dreadful, in it. Never mind, eh? But they used that. They just toured and toured and toured and toured and went on forever. So hopefully, how on and on, orbital on and on.
A bit like the Rolling Stones.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Are you seeing new fans then coming in through these
Oh
re-releases?
yeah, definitely, definitely, definitely. Yeah, the age group is did on this particular tour, the Green and the Brown. The age group is definitely younger. There's a lot of younger, look, older as well. It ranges. Yeah, I'm definitely seeing a lot of younger audiences come to see this show. Definitely.
Well, and one of the most iconic British performances is Orbital at Glastonbury in '94. What was
Yeah.
that whole day like?
Oh, that was mental. Oh, that was just mental. Yeah, it's just like you find yourself doing a disco bit at the end after Bjork, and people just wanted to do that electronic sound. They just wanted to hear it, and it just kicked off big time. The kids at the side over there, and and it was just like, this is bonkers. It was so much fun. It was nerve-wracking, but fun.
You were the first electronic group to play. Did it feel monumental at the time?
But no, it felt monumental, but not on that sense. But I tell you what happened, though. I tell you what happened because I had a lot of people come up to me afterwards and cite that they were there at that time, but they were a lot of indie band, a lot of indie kids, and they got propaganded into thinking that like electronic music was rubbish and all this sort of thing. But after listening to us, it sort of bridged what with tracks like Satan and things like that. It bridged the gap between a lot of indie kids at the time went, oh God, when I saw you, I get it. I got electronics, you know what I mean? And that has been quite a common thing uh, over the years that people come up and said that to me, which is what sort of happened. It sort of crossed over the indie deniers, the indie doubters, into electronic world, and now brilliant. It just opened up the floodgates for the dance field now. Really, it just really helped uh, turn the Eveses' heads around about electronic music, which was great, brilliant. You know,
What was the build up like to that performance? Was there a bit of like
oh, I was like that. It was like bounce around. Yeah, I can't. I can't. That saying, the lights are on, but nobody's at home. It's all like that. If you were to talk, even now, if you were to talk to me about 2, 3 hours before a gig, you wouldn't. I'd answer, but I don't know what I'd say.
really?
Yeah, I'm like, what? Yeah, 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 yeah. I'm not. Don't bother talking to me because I'm not thinking about that. I'm trying not to think about where I'm going, but it's all good. So.
With like Glastonbury, do you feel Orbital are constantly changing the game for electronic music and breaking the rules?
Well, it did. Actually, Michael Levy said, actually, I've got him on video somewhere along the way saying that when they saw Orbital, it made sense. When they saw Orbital, the penny dropped for them. So yeah, definitely trailblazed that one, which was great for the electronic calls, in my opinion.
Well, you mentioned it before, but I saw a clip on YouTube of you and Paul talking about like it was the start of electronic music and people didn't get it, and there was you were saying like people don't want new things and stuff. Did it always feel like people were against it?
Uh, in certain areas, yeah, definitely. What against electronic music?
Yeah, like in the mainstream.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, there definitely was. It definitely was. But what happened because of that crossover indie thing as well? That worked with for us for the NME and the Melody Maker as well. They it helped them get it as well. So they were interested in us. So we got a lot of good press out of them because we did because of the crossovery sort of thing. You know, they couldn't say we just make dance music. Do you know what I mean? Because we don't. We were like a square peg in a round hole for their anti dance movement campaign. Do you know what I mean? And so they were nice to us in the end. Thank God. You know, they were good to us, and that all sort of helped smooth over the edges because it was quite a mission of anti-electronic music there at the time. Back, well, I don't know what year this is. You know, 90s. Yeah, in the early 90s, up to the mid 90s. Oh, you I said.
I'm sure that Glastonbury performance is up there for you, but is there a favourite gig that you've played over the years?
Oh no, no. Yeah. Well, it's always a tricky one, that question. You know, all I care about really is that people are there have a good time, right? And if I can tell that's I'm in, right? Obviously, you know, the Glastonbury's last year was a great one as well with Tilda Swinton and Mel C. I mean, Mel B. Gosh, okay, get me so I'm dyslexic with Mel C on it. That was brilliant. But and there was another one. We did perform one track with Stephen Hawkins as well, which was we made Stephen Hawking's voice. We decoded his voice actually. So in a sense, we made him sing. We made Stephen Hawking sing for the opening ceremony of the Paralympics, which was good. And he wore the torch glasses and everything. It was like it wasn't a gig per se, but it was a moment. It was definitely a moment, you know. But yeah, like I say, I love them. I know it's a bit crap answer, but you know, there's a couple there, but they're not really gigs as such. But I you know, like I say, most gigs that every gig that I go into is like a new. It's almost like the first time I've done it. Almost, I don't know. When it comes to the relations, it's like going to a party that you don't know anybody at. You know, it's like every time you go and get a new audience, it's going into this party that you don't know, and you've just walked in and everybody's gone quiet. Do you know? What I mean? You go, oh, what should I say then? All right, how about this? Ding, 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 dong. You know, sort of thing. You know, so it's a bit like that. So and like I say, I enjoy them as long as everybody's smiling and that and happy and enjoying it. That's they're all my favourite. If you see what I mean.
Is that the same for your albums as well then?
I like Civilization if I was going to push, and the Brown album is Civilization, and the last one, Optical Delusions, my favourite at the moment. But I like most out. We can swap around.
Yeah,
But they're
yeah.
my favourites.
We
Pardon?
spoke about the live performances. You've got some DJ shows coming up in
Yeah,
America and
yeah.
Canada.
Yeah. So I go out and DJ as well, orbital DJ set type thing. Phil with Phil Hartnoll, and yeah, and so we've got our tour booked this time. We've got this. Sorry, I've slid over there. So this year we've got our tour booked. We've got some festivals coming in, as well as they're coming in at the moment, which will be announcing soon as well. Um, and then in between, because there's quite a lot of downtime regarding live, we'd be working on a new album, and I'm pumping up my DJ side of things as well, getting out and about DJing things. So it's another side of things. I mean, I learned how to DJ when we split up for the first time, and I didn't have any money, and I had to. So people going, "Go on, DJ," and I'm like, well, I'm not a DJ, am I? So anyway, so eventually I learned how to DJ, and it was around the early noughties and I was really into breakbeat. So I went round to all that, so I could get some money for feeding the kids and all that sort of thing, with the DJing thing. And I kept into it. So and over the last couple of years, I'm picking it. That's building up speed again now. And so yeah, so now I'm actually actively getting out and about DJing as well.
Yeah, that's
And
great. Like, have you got to keep yourself busy then, really?
Well, I want to, yeah, I do, yeah. Keep myself busy. That's good.
So I'm sure you can't tell us a lot, but what can you say about the new album? Is there anything you can tell us?
Oh, it's not started yet. We haven't started it yet, really. Well, I don't know about my brother. He might have started, got a few bits and bobs there, but that's why I'm getting the studio up and running in my studio here. I mean, we're just working on a remix at the moment, and then after that, we'd be working on the new album in between touring and DJing and that sort of thing.
You know, now with like Zoom and technology, do you um, do stuff at home and then send it to him and vice versa? And
Yeah. You can do that totally. Yeah, because we use Ableton live. It's so easy to send each other projects and stuff like that. You know, and have a little go here, and yeah, it's so easy now to
do you
do it
prefer
remote.
that or working together, like in the same
I
room?
sort of a bit of both actually. It works better both. You know, getting all the grounding, getting all the foundations of in tracks, and then maybe swapping around remotely, and then going into the studio and listening on the big speakers.
Speaking of the touring and playing live, you must find it crazy and like amazing that from starting out in your parents' house and you
I
with your
know,
brother making music, like you've travelled the world and done all these
I
things.
know, I know, I know. Amazing. I've had a brilliant career. I'm not complaining. I tell you, I really have. It's been so lucky, and like I say, it's the fans really that kept us there. I couldn't have done it without them, obviously. You know, really. And it's just, yeah, and it's just, and here I am, like remixing The Cure. The Cure is we're doing a remix for The Cure.
Oh,
It's
is that
like,
what you're working on now?
yeah, this is like, ah, how good is that?
That's
Yeah,
a good coming together, the Cure and Orbital.
I
Pretty
know,
different, isn't it?
I know. We'll see how that goes. We're working on it now.
Oh, brilliant! Yeah, I look forward to that. I'm a big
Yeah,
fan of the Cure as well.
yeah, me too.
Good band out there.
Yeah, I love them.
What's it been like working with your brother over the years? Obviously, there's been the ups and
Oh,
downs,
you
but
know, we're like chalk and cheese, really. You know, we're very, very opposite, and opposites clash and opposites blend. You know, so it makes a very fiery. Fiery? No, it makes a good. It makes a good balance. It's a good balance, I reckon. But you know, but with those balances, we are both very strong people. So we do clash, obviously, and brothers clash anyway. Sometimes, every now and again. And so yeah. So, but at the moment, we're getting on like a house on fire.
good, good. Are you glad you were with all the fallouts and stuff? Are you glad you achieved everything with your brother and done it all with your
Oh
brother?
yeah, totally.
Good, good. And just to finish off, how do you want Orbital to be remembered?
As an electronic band. Well, they were pretty good, weren't they? Yeah, our son, listen to this.
I think it'll go, like you say, see different generations. So the musical be going down different generations for years and years, won't it? Really?
Oh, that's what I love. I love, you know, imagine, right? So after lockdown, right, there was a festival we did in Glasgow. That was the first gig that we'd done after lockdown, which was like been about 3 odd years. We went there, and I'm not even joking. It was so lucky because we had a load of little T-shirts for some reason, like girl T-shirts. And our T-shirt guy said, "Oh, just like oh," I said, "Give them to me, give them to me." You know, we weren't going to sell them anyway because it was last year's or like, you know. And then in Glasgow, like this festival, like nearly the whole front row, we're talking up, taken up with these little tiddly pops. We were like tiny little kids with like torch glasses on and sort of like, you know, so then I'm chucking out the going, perfect. How good is that with all these little t-shirts? So I'm throwing them out. And like these older fans are pushing the kids out the way. I want one of those, I want one of those. It was hilarious. But watching that, like going there, the first gig after lockdown, it's like seeing these little kids with torch glasses on, obviously totally indoctrinated by the torch wearing glasses parents behind. But it was like, how good was that? And they were loving it. And they stayed from the beginning to end. Two Glaswegian kids there. Stayed from the beginning to the end, and they were having it. They were proper having it. I was well impressed, and that was really, yeah, that was great fun.
Did you miss the live performances of that during lockdown then?
Oh yeah, I missed it. Yeah, I thought it was all over. I thought everything was over. You know, DJ and everything. I thought I didn't know where I was. I couldn't listen to music. It was really
Really?
weird. No, I couldn't. I could only listen to Kraftwerk, funnily enough. computer world. That's the only thing I could listen to. Then ended up with 4 cats as well.
Well, I was going to say you've got the tour coming up, the DJ tour.
Yes.
So maybe a new album. You're working with the Cure, so I'm looking
Yeah.
forward to hearing it and seeing what happens
Yeah. Brilliant.
in the
Nice one.
future.
Me too.
Well, thank you for your time. It's been
Cheers,
great.
Ethan.
Thank you. See you.
See you then.
Nice one.
Bye.
Thank you.